Welcome to They Tried to Bury Us. My name is Tamer Kattan. I'll be your host. I'm a comedian, a writer, and an actor. I was born in Egypt and moved to America when I was just a kid, so I'm very proud of being an immigrant. And ever since I started doing comedy, I've met more and more immigrants, and I have found more and more amazing stories, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I'm going to have a new guest. They're going to sit down and share with us their American origin stories, and we're going to get to know each other better, and we're going to find out that we're all just the same. So tune in each week, tell every single person you know, and thanks for listening. Welcome back to episode 8 of They Tried to Bury Us. Thank you so much for all the support, all the really amazing messages and notes, and all the great comments about my mom and wanting to adopt her and take her for your own. That's not happening. She's all I have. I was an only child. My dad's passed away. It's just me and my mom. You can't have her. But Mom, thank you for being my co-host.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm very proud of you
guest too.
Yeah, I'm very proud of our guest too. I think she's great.
Yeah.
Our guest today, thank you for that perfect segue, by the way. You're so good.
Oh my God.
You're like a lady at Ed McMahon.
I learned from the best.
I love it. So what a perfect segue. Our guest today is one of the hosts of the Ethnically Ambiguous podcast, which I love. I'm a massive fan of. If you're listening to this, go download it, listen to it if you aren't already. And she's also an amazing comedy producer that's worked with some of the my favorite people in comedy. So welcome, Anna Hossnieh.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Oh. Can you do my favorite voice that you do on your podcast?
Oh, I'm a hamster.
And I think we just found the title of this episode.
I'm just a hamster. I'm hairy. I'm a hamster.
I told you this before we got on the air, but I do want to talk about it. I think that you and Shireen have such great chemistry on that podcast, and it's that particular voice in particular that it's so playful, the energy you guys have on the podcast, but yet you guys talk about real things and remove the horns from the demonization that's been happening to a lot of our cultures, and I really love it. I think you guys are doing a really great thing.
I think it comes from what we spend a lot of time together when we can, because our schedules, like Shireen works like on set, so her schedule will be like very long and
fancy. I work on set.
Yeah, she's a filmmaker, and I'm just the podcast producer that's always sitting behind people in their studios while they record. But I feel like we really go through it. Like we have our arguments, we have our good days, like we have our like very emotional like cry to each other, like I just want you to know, like it's like a wide range of emotions through us, and I think that really helps the relationship because we see each other at our worst and we see each other at our best, and Shireen listens to me cry all the time, and I listen to her cry, and then I'll be like, I'm mad at you. And she'll be like, well, I'm mad at you. And then, we go through it. We really go through it.
It's so great. I love it. Like, to me, that's the beauty of like a really beautiful friendship. You know, like when I saw the movie Castaway and I saw Tom Hanks have to make a friend out of a volleyball. Yeah. It shows you human beings need that. Like we're pack animals. We're not designed to be alone. So when you find somebody that's like a fit to your puzzle piece emotionally or in whatever, or culturally, it's a big thing. Yeah. I label a lot of people like you and I and like Shireen as like in-betweeners, like because we're in between two cultures. So I think it's even more valuable when you find someone that
it's true. Like we were both raised with strict parents. We have like such similar things going on in our heads at times where like you just don't, I don't know, you deal with things that have manifested over the years based off like how your parents raised you, and it comes out in ways where you're like, no one else can understand this because I'm crazy because my dad didn't let me do anything. And it just comes out, and then you see this person who's like has like a matching soul with you, and you're like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Oh, good thing you're here, because I could like turn to any of my like normal like white friends and say something, and they're like, that's weird, I've never experienced that. And then I can turn to Shireen and she's like, dude, isn't that crazy? Like it's the best.
It's so great.
You're the best. She's here. I'm just telling her she's the best.
It's great because it makes you feel, I remember having moments like that and going, I'm not crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's so great to be able to say those words, to go, I'm not crazy, I'm not alone, is the thing that makes us feel sane. Yeah. So it's great. I think what you guys are doing is really special, and I'm really stoked that you're here on the podcast.
I'm glad you guys came have
Yay. So, okay, let's start this love fest.
All right.
Are you ready to dive in?
I'm ready.
Let me bring up one thing with my mom really quick. I noticed, a lot of times on this podcast last time, I had my mom say, I decided that I was going to start the podcast by saying, they tried to bury us. And my mom would say the word
Podcast. I have to do podcast.
She has to yell the letter P.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So people were like, oh, you're making fun of your mom's accent. Listen, you boobs. I'm not making fun of my mom's accent. She's my mom. I don't love anything more than my own mom. Are you insane? I joke around with people I love because I'm a comedian, for crying out loud. But here's the other thing that you don't realize is that my mom constantly makes fun of my accent. You think she has an accent. I have an accent when I speak Arabic.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this one phrase and I'm going to let you see what it does to my mom. Are you ready?
Yeah. Say it.
I will say it. I'm going to see how you react to my pronunciation of this phrase. Are you ready?
I am.
Ya satir ya Rab. See?
That's mean, oh my God.
It just means, oh my God. That's all it means.
Say it one more time.
Ya satir ya Rab.
That's great.
So just so you jackasses know, it's not only her that has an accent, it's not only her that's belittled by the laughing.
The pure joy in her face.
She laughs at me constantly from my horrific Arabic surfer accent.
Can I say why you said that?
Yeah.
The other day he called me. Usually he called me at
Yeah.
night to check how's my day and all that.
Yeah.
And I told him little gossip, two thing gossip. And
She
he
loves to
said,
gossip.
oh my God, I feel like I'm in back home, Egypt, kitchen with all the maids, they gossip.
Yeah.
And now
All
you
the
gossip.
maids?
Yeah, because the maids,
What are we,
they
the
gossip
Trump?
in the kitchen.
How many maids did we?
3. You have 3.
Oh, yeah, we
That's
had three.
normal.
Yeah,
That was
so
normal.
Yeah, normal. But I come from home. We don't have a servant or
Yeah.
anything. We just less than middle class.
Mm-hmm.
But his family different. His dad family different. But
Started from the top. Now we're here.
And he say, "Oh my goodness, in Arabic, I cannot sleep whole night." I laugh.
It's my pronunciation.
Okay, keep going, Anna. Forget
No,
about me.
actually, on that point, in my family in Iran, they always have people working for them, and it's weird when you go there
Yeah.
and they're like, "Let me do your laundry," and you're like, I can do it. They're like, and then my dad's like, "Do not." You let them do the laundry.
Yeah.
Don't be rude. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
being rude?
Yeah.
I don't want her to do my work. I can do it.
No,
And they're like,
that's
yeah,
it.
but that's how it is here.
Yeah,
You have
it's such a
duty.
weird
Do it.
feeling.
Yeah, have
Yeah.
duty.
There was these guys in Egypt on the bottom of apartment buildings called bawebs.
Yes.
And baweb means door person, but really they're Bedouins who are like tribal people from the desert, and they sleep like in the lobby. They're like literally a bed in the lobby, and this guy and I became really good friends, and we talked every day, and
Yeah.
he asked me like really specific political questions
Yeah.
about George Bush at the time, and I'm like, here's this guy that's supposed to be like on the socioeconomic ladder at the very
Yeah.
bottom, and he had these like really smart questions about George Bush, and so we talked and we built this friendship, and at the end of my stay in Egypt, it's really hard to get American money back once you have Egyptian pounds out. They're like, we don't want that shit.
Yeah.
You keep it. So I ended up giving him, I think I gave him like $40.
Yeah,
40
yeah,
bucks
something.
American.
Oh my
and
God.
he started crying.
Well, that's
Like it was really,
that's big.
That's
it was a lot of
Yeah,
money
a lot.
for him. And
Yeah.
he, and my uncle was like, why are you sitting and having coffee with the Baweb? People are watching you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cause he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And those other guys aren't. And I like talking to him. I don't care if he's wearing a turban on his head.
Well, it's the same thing in Iran. It's how they are with the Kurdish people.
Yeah.
Like they're like, don't bother with them. And it's like, they're just people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sorry, they're the working class. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. So you came from Iran. Your family came from
My
Iran.
family came from, or my parents came separately from Iran and met in America.
Wow. That's very cool. That must have been such a cool experience. So like, I'm going to America
Yeah.
to start life, and then they end up finding the person they fall in love with.
Yeah.
That's
That's very interesting.
it's like a rom-com.
Kind of. If you met my parents, you wouldn't think that. They're very, I don't know. They both came to America separately. Like my dad came from northern Iran, which is like the Azeri area. So they're like Turks. They speak a different dialect of Turkish. And they're a little more hot-headed. They're crazy. They drink,
wow.
they party. They're just loud. They
Yeah.
like, when you hear a conversation, you'd be like, are those people yelling at each other? And it's like, no, they're just saying, how are you? How was your day? But it sounds like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, gee, calm down. It's like, no, they're calm. They're just loud.
Yeah, very loud.
Yeah.
And my mom's from Tehran. She's from a very religious, quiet, like just academic family. And so they both came to America to just get their college degrees in engineering and then go back to Iran. That was the plan. But then the Iranian Revolution happened and they were like, might as well just stay in America.
Wow.
And then my parents met. Do you want to hear the story how my parents met?
Of course.
This is a good contrast of who my parents are. My mom, very religious Muslim woman, prays 5 times a day. Oh, I think I wrote this to you in an email. She writes, Inshallah, in every text, always capitalizes the A.
Yeah.
She knows Allah is in the text message. You have to respect him, you know? My dad, just all he does is drink wine all day. He loves to drink, he loves to dance, and he loves to hang out with his friends. And he just loves to just party, basically. And he likes to barbecue. He just wants to always make kebab and, you know. That's all he wants to do. So they were at a mutual friend. So they both came to Utah to go to school. My dad went to University of Utah. My mom went to Weber State. They were both studying
What
engineering.
made them pick Utah? Is there
I think that was just where they got their visas to go to school. Like they applied to a bunch of schools and those were the ones that accepted them. And so my dad, so they were both at a mutual friend's wedding at a Mormon church. And a Mormon church, you can't have any alcohol. So so my dad, being my dad, he had a trunk full of vodka. So everyone was taking little cups and there was a line from my dad's like car, like his trunk. My dad's just like pouring everyone vodka, like, yeah, let's party. And my mom, I guess at the time was with a friend, and my mom doesn't drink or smoke or, you know, do any of that. But she like went with a friend and that's how she met him. And my dad, because my dad is, while he likes to party, he's an academic in his own right. Like he's a civil engineer, you know. He just immediately narrowed in on her, like was like, oh, this lady's smart. She's cute. Who is this? And she's like, no, thank you. Leave me alone. And then I think he just kept pursuing her to a point where she was like, oh, well, I mean, he seems to really like me. And if you meet my mom, she's very like, you know, it was just the next step I had to take was meet a man and get married because I was here. So he seems to really like me. And my mom is very funny. She's very dry. She's very just like, you know, you just do what you can. You know, with God's plan, you just do what you can. You just live your life. You go to work, you come home, you clean. And that's, you know, I do my prayer and then I go to bed. Then I wake up the next day and I just do it again and no big deal.
That's great.
Yeah,
It's
so
like a
that's-
Lady Al Bundy.
Yeah, she's just like, I do my business and I don't bother anyone and I, you know.
Oh,
So she just, I think my dad harassed her enough that she was like, okay.
This seemed to be a common thread among a lot of these romantic immigrant stories where the women say no, and then they're like, no, what kind of no? Are you sure? What about tomorrow at this time? Still no?
Yeah. I think my dad was just kept being like, you're so smart. All I want is a smart woman. And my mom was like, okay, sure. Why not?
My mom did the same. She told my dad, what did you say? You said you have too many girlfriends already?
yeah.
I'm not going to be number 4 or something like that?
No,
Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he tried to be honest with me to
Yeah.
say, I'm not the kind that I get married. So when he told me that, I get so upset. Do you think I'm selling myself here? I don't want to be with you.
Yeah, why would
So
you?
I break up with him for 2 months. And then he called me back and, you know, I love his mom. So I think because his mom, I went back, you know.
I always wonder what my face would have looked like if she married a different dude.
You wouldn't have been here.
Could have had a weird face. Or a
Would have
weird,
been a different
weird
Tamer.
neck. Yeah.
A weird neck.
Can you imagine if those people have bad necks?
It's like a full neck.
Yeah. Thank God I have like a perfect pharaoh head. Because I had to shave my. Imagine if she married a guy with a bad skull.
Oh my God.
Like an inbred skull.
Yeah, it would be terrible. So good. I'm glad he worked his way around the no.
Don't worry. I stand up for myself all my life.
So that's great. So it's really interesting that your parents had almost this Dharma and Greg kind of dynamic.
They still do. It's still of my dad being like, I love you. My mom being like, leave me alone.
That's so great. That's so great.
Yeah.
So who do you think you get your personality from more, your mom or your dad?
Both. I think I'm a mix of both because I can be very patient with my mom, like just quiet and patient and not bother anyone. But then I can also just lose my mind like my dad. Like I can be very intense and angry and upset like my father and like want to like be social. Like I get my most social aspect from my father and then I get my like work from my mom. Like I'm just quiet and do my work, keep my head down, don't bother anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they meet, they fall in love. Oh, well, he convinces her.
Yeah.
So then what happens next after she says, okay.
They get married in Utah and then
So still college.
I think it was Yeah, I think my dad was, I think they were both in their master's degree at that point. So yeah, they get married and then, so they get married in Utah and then they move to Sacramento for a little because my dad actually gets his master's from University of not Sacramento. Wait, what is it? Sacramento State, University of Sacramento. It's all a blur these days. But
it's not far from where you went to school. That's so funny.
No, which I'll tell you all about why I had to go to that school. It was my dad's maniacal. It was the plan from day one. That man has been he's been plotting to get me at UC Davis for
Middle
a
Eastern
long
dads
time.
are really good at planning things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then they go there. My mom had finished her master's degree before him because she's smarter than him. Let's be real. So then they go there and they live in Sacramento. And then I have one brother born. And then from there they move to the Bay Area. And then eventually I come around.
That's a big cultural shift from Utah to San Francisco.
Yeah. And then, because they both started working at Caltrans.
Oh, wow.
And then my dad was on the Bay Bridge project for years.
Oh,
that was
wow. That's right, because they were civil engineers.
Yeah. And my mom was electrical engineer.
Electrical engineer. Wow.
She's smarter than him again. She just knows more.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you guys end up in the Bay Area. A brother is born, older brother, obviously. And then, so you were born in the Bay Area?
Yeah. I was born in Berkeley.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This is perfect for you.
Yeah.
That's, considering the podcast and everything and kind of Berkeley had a major influence on who you are as a person. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, most of my life I lived in Berkeley, Oakland, and then I moved to Davis. So my whole life has just been living in liberal towns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's fine. Well, Oakland is it's almost like an intellectual guy that'll stab you. Sorry, Oakland. I kid. I made a bad joke. I apologize.
Telling you about his vegan diet. Yeah,
a vegan gangster.
Yeah.
I think Ice-T was a vegan gangster.
I believe it.
Somebody was that was kind of scary for a while.
He's like, I eat really well, but do not fuck with me.
So, what was it like to grow up with this dynamic where you had almost a good, fun cop, serious cop with your parents? What was it like to be Iranian with the Berkeley as a backdrop?
I was the only Iranian in my elementary school.
Wow.
For a long time. I was the only really Iranian I knew in my school system outside of my parents' family friends around who never really had kids my age. So everyone was always older. But it was weird because no one knew who I was. No one knew what I was. And I never really knew how to tell people what I was. I was always kind of my parents are from Iran. And they'd be like, whatever. And I'd be like, oh, you're right. And then they'd be like, you're Indian. And I'd be like, sure. I don't know.
Weird. That's always been a phrase that's tripped me out. That's always it almost, my body would go, wait, that's off. But I didn't know exactly what was off about it.
Yeah.
But when I got older and I'd say, where are you from? And someone say, well, my parents are from blank. I still don't know why it bugs me. I went through that phase too. I went through a phase where I was trying on other nationalities, or I'd up my Greek percentage, which is this much. I'm very not even a quarter Greek.
No, quarter.
A quarter Greek. Yeah. But I used to be, when things would go bad in the news or gas prices were high, people seem to forget, even before 9/11, if gas prices were high and people's parents would talk poorly about Middle Eastern people, I'd get picked on at school.
Yeah, that's
so crazy. It was like watching the weather, for bullying and be like, oh, gas prices are high. Oh shit. I better not wear my favorite shirt. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. I never really experienced, my bullying was because I was weird, I think, and just different. So I was always it wasn't aggressive bullying, but there would definitely be people who'd just be like, you're weird. Just tell me I'm weird.
What was weird about you?
I don't know. I think I've always been a loner. I like to spend a lot of time alone. I travel by myself a lot. I just would just lurk around. I was probably literally just sitting alone all the time.
Yeah.
And I always remember these two twins who would come up and be like, hang out with us. And I'd be like, okay.
It just made you 33% weirder.
Yeah.
The girl who hangs out with no one but the creepy twins.
Yeah, exactly. So they would always they always really wanted me to be more social. I don't know why they had this investment in me. I think they were just so nice, just these twins. And I'd be like, okay, I'll try. And then the next day I would just be back sitting by myself and they'd be like, okay, come hang out. And it was just this never ending thing. I'd be like, I'm trying, but I also just like being alone.
Yeah. and that was just a personality thing. You don't think it was a product of environment in any way?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I like quiet.
Yeah.
I think my mom. My mom's kind of a loner as well. I just, You know, I have to be in the mood to be around people. If I'm not, then I'm just like sitting there and like not saying anything and just doing my own thing. I just think I'm just an introvert. I think a lot. I just overthink.
Yeah.
So I'm just probably
no
sitting
such
there.
thing as overthink. I like thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking's good. So
Yeah.
how did you experience Iranian culture? How were you exposed to it?
I was aggressively by my parents. I mean,
Like
that's
used
all
car
I knew.
salesman from
like
Iran?
it's the same thing. I go home, I'm basically in Iran because my parents spoke Farsi. Like I just, you know, I didn't experience like normal holidays. Like for Christmas, they would get us a tiny little tree and be like, okay, so for now you can feel this. And then by the time we turned 10, they were like, no tree, get over it. Here's some cash, you know? And you're like, thanks. Yeah. So I didn't really have a sense of most things. Like I ate the food my parents made, which was like the smelly food that like it would be hard to take to school because everyone's like, what's that? I'm like, I just want peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then my parents are like, if you make it yourself, you can have it. But I don't know. And you know, all our family friends were just like older Persian people. So I'd always just kind of like sit in the corner of people's like mehmoonies, which is like the parties.
Yeah.
And just like hang out by myself because all the like older teens wouldn't really, you know, they would interact with me, but they wouldn't like hang out with me.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
I can absolutely relate to that. I remember at my parents' house, I was the first kid born within the group of friends.
Yeah.
So, and my grandmother was very social. So there was a lot of old people coming around. And I, as a little kid, my mom always laughs at this. I used to walk with both of my hands behind my back and hold them at my lower back like a tiny politician.
I do that.
You do it too?
Because my dad does it. So I just started doing it.
It's weird. It's like a cultural thing, right? I think that certain cultures do it. But it was one time I ran away from home and my mom noticed that I'd left the apartment. She's like, oh my God, where's Tamer?
Yeah.
And she ran downstairs. She's like, did you see a little boy? They're like, was he walking like this? And they're like, yeah. And I had walked to my pediatrician.
Can you believe
And she
it?
walked up. I was in the waiting room flipping through magazines.
That's where you ran away to?
Because I walked into the salon where they'd have their parties and I tried to speak and she's like, Tamer, shh.
Yeah.
The adults are talking. So I go, I'm out of here. I'm like, I'm not taking this. I'm a senator. I'm a 6-year-old senator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think also my parents are the only people from their families that came. So I didn't have any cousins in America. So there wasn't like anyone to like relate to be like, oh, we're blood, you know?
I can absolutely relate. I didn't have any blood cousins.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody.
Yeah.
Just me and Tamer and with
Yeah.
my husband.
I had cousins that we called each other cousin, but whenever we got into a fight, they'd be like, you're not a real cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, okay, I'm not putting any more, I'm not investing any more emotional currency in this. 'Cause
But
it was-
anyway,
it
we
broke my
cut-
heart. It broke my heart a bunch of times.
Oh, we cut the relation 8 years ago. So.
But you know what's happening is we've recently found a relative. You reconnected
Yes,
with
my
Hiba,
cousin,
and we're going to meet them for the first time. I'm going to
Oh,
meet blood relatives
wow.
in
Yeah.
America.
And by
the
the
first
way,
time.
you can eat kosher with them because they don't eat meat. So you're welcome.
Yeah, you
they
guys can
are
come have
here
kosher.
from 23 to January 3. So you're welcome anytime. You just call me and book your time with me.
My mom's
They
setting
came
up
from
dinner dates
Egypt?
on the air.
No, from Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. So they've been in the country.
Yeah, they live in Washington,
Yeah.
D.C.
Cool.
For 8 years now. But that's first relative for
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to hang out. It's going to be weird for me to be around people that are like my blood.
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
I did it in Egypt for a little bit. I had a really
Yeah.
weird experience where I met like my own blood relatives,
But
cousins.
they are different
Yeah.
in Egypt.
We're very different,
They
yeah.
think different.
Yeah.
They act different. Everything different.
Yeah. That's I have one family member technically in the country now. She came later. Now she's a pharmacist in Napa, but she is so in Iran, it's common for a man to have 2 or 3 wives.
Yeah.
It's a thing. My grandpa did it. It really destroyed his relationship with my mother because she was like, no, thank you. I can't have all these moms, you know?
Yeah.
So she was she's technically blood, but it's like a weird disconnect where her mom is the second wife of my like uncle. So there's this weird thing where she's like kind of, you know, removed because she's well, I guess she's technically my cousin. It's very confusing because you're like, oh, but she's the other sister. Well, I don't know. It's complicated, but so
It's
she's now in
related.
Iran, and she's like the only person. Like now, like my dad is like, because she's from my dad's side. My dad's like obsessed with her. He's always like, "You have to come over. You have to come over. You have to come over. You're our family. You have to come over." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I mean, you're literally all I have as well."
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's just those notions of belonging again are such
Yeah.
I'm starting to I'm excited to meet them. You know, and I don't really know them very well, so it's kind of like meeting a stranger, but at the same time, it's a familiar thing. Like when I visited Egypt, my cousins came with me to a nightclub because I had the only other people I knew in Egypt were very modern Egyptians that lived in America. So when I was back there, I was with Sam's cousin, and then my cousins came with us to this. Sam's cousin was a director for a music channel for Arabia. It's like MTV Arabia. Nice. So he takes us to this nightclub, and my cousins had, even though they grew up in Cairo, they'd never been to a nightclub. So we walked in, and it was as if I came to visit America, and we went out to a nightclub in Miami, and my cousins from Louisville came. Wow. I'm sorry, Louisville, you're a bigger city than that. Like some small town, you know.
They're not allowed.
Yeah,
they were
ridiculous.
They were like going up to girls saying, "Can I take a picture with you?" And I'm like, you maybe talk to them first. Don't just be like it's like a mannequin. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of there's no nightclubs in Iran, you know? Yeah. So my family, like I have two cousins who left Iran and now go to school in Australia. Oh, wow. And they're just posting photos in the club, like partying it up. I'm like, wow, it's real. Like you've never experienced that before. And now that's all you do. It's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So did you the feeling of aloneness of being a quote unquote weirdo, is that something that stayed with you? Is it something that's gone up or down in terms of intensity, or has it just stayed with you?
I think it's just stayed with me. I think I've definitely like plateaued in my weirdness. Like as I got older, like the big things, I stopped caring what anyone really thought about me, because I was very like, you know, when you're this culture that no one knows and you're just the weirdo, you don't look like anyone else, you can't help but be like completely confused about what you look like and who you are. And I was very self-conscious like my whole life. And then I think I just got to college and I was just like, oh man, fuck this. Like who cares? Like who really cares? Because everyone else is so concerned what other people are thinking about them. They're not actually thinking that much about you, you know? Yeah. And that was like a big thing. And then, I started going to therapy in high school, and then that went through to college.
That's very progressive of you.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, the one time I brought my dad to therapy, my therapist was like, oh, I understand everything. Because my dad was like, I don't know why we're here. She doesn't need this. She doesn't need pills. She's fine. Get over it. You're being dramatic. And I was like, do I really need to go on? Like, look at my father. And then my mom was literally like, she's not allowed to cry. Crying is weakness. And they were like, okay, we have a lot to undo here. Yeah. And now I only cry. I just cry all day.
But crying is healthy.
It is.
Yeah. It is healthy. I think it's one of the causes of toxic masculinity is those phrases, boys don't cry. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible thing to say. It's not men don't cry, it's boys don't cry. Boys that don't cry turn into men that don't talk, and now we've got this massive problem. It's like women grow up with impossible physical standards and men grow up with these impossible emotional ones. But when you're Middle Eastern, then they throw impossible emotional ones on you guys too. Yeah. That must have been really hard for you, like to have like your parents not really, I don't know, because sometimes the cultural rules are hard for anybody, but when they're hard on a specific personality type that isn't like that makes you feel like even more of an outcast. Yeah. Did you feel like an outcast in your own family?
Yeah, well, like definitely. Like I was the black sheep, you know? Like my dad would joke, be like, she's an artist, she's emotional. And I'd be like, I am an artist and I am emotional. You know, like it's not a joke. Yeah. Like it's who I am. Yeah. And so that was hard. And my mom really tried, but I could tell like she was so religious and she's so, like just culturally Iranian. Like it was hard for her to connect with me. Like she would come, I would be crying and my dad had been mean to me and been like, you can't do this, you can't do anything, you go to school, you study and you become an engineer and that's that. And I'd be like, there's nothing. Like there's nothing I'm allowed to do that's me. Yeah. And that would just like, it would really like, I didn't know how to like what to say or what to do. Like the idea of just being like, okay, and like being quiet and like doing what he said, like I couldn't. I was like, no, I'm you. Like I'm literally you. I want to scream in your face and be like, no, sir, you're not allowed to do that. Because, when you're literally looking at your own genes and your own DNA and you're like both two stubborn people, like I couldn't stop myself from being like freaking out and having like a tantrum and being like, I just want to be seen. Yeah. And my mom's only way, like she was just coming to her and be like, you just need to understand, like, this is just how it is. It's just the way it is. When you get older, you can do what you want. But right now, this is how it is. And like, that was all she could say. And she'd be like, don't cry. it shows your weakness. Don't cry. You just need to be strong and get through it. And to me, that was just like, what? How do I deal with this? I feel like I'm not giving any tools to deal with it. I'm just being told to just take it and shut up. And I didn't know. I didn't know what to do.
Cover up.
Yeah, hide it. Keep it inside. Don't show people that you're emotional because, you know, it's always like that reputation thing. You just want to be seen as the good Middle Eastern daughter, you know, not crazy, not like emotional. And it's like, and that's the most amazing thing. When I started going to see my family in Iran, I'd be like, oh my God, you guys are riddled with mental illness and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like everything, every person I'd be like, they need therapy. They need therapy. They need therapy. Oh my God, I'm not alone. This whole family is crazy and they're all in denial.
Yeah.
And that was big for me. Because then I could just, my dad would say something. I'd be like, no, I've seen where you come from.
100%. I think there's a beautiful opportunity in immigrating in the sense that you have an opportunity to break a lot of cycles.
Yeah.
Because you're put in an environment, especially an environment that's a little bit more open-minded and a little bit more progressive.
Yeah.
I'm always careful about how I say progressive because I have a little cousin who said this really great thing. He said, why are we the third world when we were here first?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's right. Even the language.
Yeah.
Right? The language is so infuriating.
Yeah. And that was all, I just learned that those third world, second world is all just like, it's just made up. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But do you think, I've noticed this, there's two types of immigration experiences. There's some people that were the epicenter of their struggle is when they leave their house. And for some of us, the epicenter is inside the house. Do you think when you think of like tough times in your childhood and becoming a strong, talented Middle Eastern woman, like on your way to becoming who you are and not giving a damn, where was most of the struggle? Was it at home or away from home?
I think it started at home towards the end of high school. And then once I went to college, I think I really was able to.
Free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was able to really just kind of look at my life. And like I said, therapy just helped me a lot.
Therapy is so great. I thank God every day that Jerry Katzman, the very sweet Jewish guy that was teaching me comedy, that was my mentor for comedy. He's the guy that got me to go to therapy. And it was life-changing. Yeah. Like I don't look back and remember a younger version of myself. I remember a different person.
Yeah.
So it's so great that you discovered it at such an
I just needed
age.
to understand how to deal with my emotions and like how to not completely cut my like father off. Because I really, really struggled with my relationship with my dad for years. Like there would be days where I'd be like, never again. Yeah. I will not speak to this man ever again.
Yeah.
And that was hard. It was like, you love your dad so much. Sorry, I'm getting so emotional.
No,
talking about my dad is so hard.
Yeah.
I'm sure he love you too, but he don't know any better.
I can relate.
Yeah.
I had the same experience with my
He don't know any better.
Dad.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel sorry for the kids. They come with immigrant family.
Yeah.
Because they come with different world and you go to school, you learn about lots of things. And when you come home, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed.
Yeah.
You know, I have a great relationship with my husband. He's a very, very nice man. I mean, for this day, I mean, I never see anybody like him.
Yeah.
But the most important we fight over, Tamer. Yeah. Because he tried to teach him Egyptian way or Middle East.
And then there's this really weird tension between her and I too.
It's not fair.
Like I loved my dad, but I wouldn't describe him as nice.
No.
Like he wasn't nice to me.
Exactly.
And my mom's memories are very selective.
He's great.
And that's okay. And I don't.
It's okay.
But you know, therapy was really important for me to be honest about those experiences.
Yeah.
But it's important also because it's not fair to try to raise your kids like you live in Egypt. That's not right.
Sure.
It's not their fault.
Yeah.
They don't ask to come over here. You bring the kids here.
Right.
So be in the middle. Try to understand what they see outside. That's my problem with the immigrant kids is they go through a lot.
But it's gotta be tough too. And it's like your own dad and you know, like he's the person that, I mean, it's your own family.
Yeah.
It's your own family. The person that's supposed to love you the most, that's stopping you from discovering the most and being the person you want to be.
Right.
So it's got to be a really, I mean, even going to therapy is an act of rebellion, I must imagine.
Oh, it was. It was, they always tell me like, you don't need it. You don't need antidepressants. You don't need to take any medication. Yeah. And I'd be like, but you don't feel what I feel inside. Yeah. You don't see it. You think I can get over it, but I can't. Like I work so hard to like not feel those things, but like I am who I am. Like that was a big thing was like learning that like being depressed, like it was real. It's just like who I was.
Yeah.
I was just a depressed person. And I don't know, maybe that stemmed from how I was raised and always being like kind of shut down. But I just kind of had to I had to not hear what they were saying. Like, I just had to be like, that's how they are, and just accept it and just move on and do the work you need to do on yourself without their like overbearing, like just the words they're saying in the background. Like, it didn't matter, because as soon I knew, like, as I got older, I was like, they will be in your life less. They won't be there every day. And then I have to create my own life and my own family and just move on from there.
Yeah.
And that was very hard because,
what was sort of the theme of this, the type of stuff they'd say to you that would drive you, make you the most upset?
My dad spoke down to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, if I couldn't meet his standards, then I just wasn't enough.
Yeah. You're
and
not
that
good.
was hard. Yeah.
You're not good.
And that, like, as a woman, especially when your mom is this religious woman that can't, like, she doesn't know how to connect with you, because I'm not religious. She never pushed it on us. Like, Islam was always her thing. And because my dad's not religious at all, she didn't really have, like, she didn't care to include us in that. So it was always kind of like, my mom's Muslim, my dad's secular. She does her own thing. Like, when I was a kid, I would try and pray with her. I'd always do all the motions, like, next to her. But, like, that was about it. Like, after, I got older and, like, I was playing soccer and I'd have hobbies, like, there was no connection there. Like, my mom, she's not very feminine. Like, well, she's like feminine, but she never wears makeup. She would go and get her hair done and stuff, but she never took me. So I never had that experience of, like, learning how to do things. I never had the sex talk. Like, she never spoke to me about sex. Like, literally was just like, don't get pregnant. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, never taught me, like, really much about my period or anything like that. Like, I never knew how to put on a tampon. Like, I didn't know anything.
Wow.
Like, I, like, learned from the outside world or from the internet and whatnot, and, like, my friends. But so there wasn't an extreme connection there, because I never thought she was trying to teach me anything or, like, help me evolve as a woman. Because to her, it was like, you wear baggy clothes and you don't show your body, you cover up and you just are a good Muslim woman. And that is that. And so that was hard for me to reconcile with, because I didn't feel like she was making an effort to raise me to be like a true full woman, which, that's like a
celebrate
weird thing
what you
to
are,
say. Yeah.
Instead of suppressing it.
Yeah. So I was just, that's all I was told. It's just like, suppress who you are, be quiet, and, like, that's it. And just, like, go become an engineer, like, make money and have health insurance.
And it's funny because they're trying to do what they think is safe.
Yeah.
They're trying to do what they think is their job to do, because that's a software that's in their computers.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, but you're growing up here. And so you've got a different set of software in your computer.
Exactly. And
I'm sure they have lots of love, but they don't know how.
Yeah, they don't know how to.
Yeah.
And that was a process. I mean, like, I'm close to my parents, but I don't see them. Like, we don't talk every day. My mom will text me, like, once a week and be like, oh, you're alive? Good, you're alive. Like, my dad sends me, like, funny videos on the internet. That's our relationship.
You want to hear something funny about that?
Yeah.
So, Middle Eastern men in particular. I used to work in an ad agency, and we had we were sent to Riyadh to get feedback from a focus group on how men feel about their cars, their new cars.
In Riyadh.
In Riyadh. So at first, it was just a bunch of men in a focus group. They knew they were being watched, and they would just be like, "It's a car. It gets me from A to B. I don't know what else you want me to say."
Yeah.
And we're like, "No, how does it feel?" It feels nice. It looks nice. That's how it feels. So then we said, "Okay, these guys they don't have a big enough palette." With words to show emotions, or we have to trick them into showing their feelings. So then we gave them a stack of magazines and a pair of scissors. Yeah. And then we said, tell us in pictures how you feel about your car.
They made, like, vision boards.
Yes.
Wow.
And then they would cut out pictures of diamonds. And then all of a sudden I saw these really tough dudes that were afraid to show any emotion, saying, this car is precious to me. It's the first time I was able to get a promotion, and my family was proud of me. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? This is a completely different person. Yeah. Because, and we didn't do anything. We just found a way to switch off that crappy architecture that says, this is the way you have to be. Because we made them busy by using this thing that they weren't used to. And then their real personalities came out.
You put them to work.
They're suppressed too.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that are in the hijab, but they're suppressed too. They're absolutely suppressed. And I think it's tough. Like you can take the immigrant out of their home country, but sometimes you can't take the home country out of the immigrant.
No, and I feel like my parents have come a long way.
I bet.
Sure.
My dad is. Sure. I mean, I think something you told me, like the lower testosterone. I didn't realize it, but I think that's it because my dad, I love my dad now. Like he's always like, I'm so proud of you.
Aww.
Like you've done so much. Like you didn't listen to me, but you still made a life. And he always
so great.
He just wants me to have health insurance. He's like, you have a job that gives you health insurance. Like that's all that matters to him, you know?
Yeah.
And it took a long time for him to be this person.
Yeah.
And it was just like, one day I was just like, oh my God, he's nice.
Yeah.
Like he's just nice. He just wants to hang out and, like, just drink wine and watch TV and watch Golden Girls for hours. Like that's all he ever wants to do.
Oh my God. Now I want to be friends with your dad. I love Golden Girls.
He's great now. Like when he comes on our podcast, like he's not the man who was trying to raise 2 kids in America, like, and get like, just, I don't know. He just wasn't aggressive. Like, he's not aggressive anymore. And he used to be so intense. Like, it's so, if you saw my dad back then and his just like stern scowl all the time, being like, do your homework. And me being like, I just want to see people on the outside world. My dad's like, that's not really an option. To like today when he's just like, I don't know, do what you want. You want to take my BMW here, take it. And you're like, wow, okay, I'll take your car. Like, you're going to let me drive.
That's my favorite Persian dad sentence.
Yeah. He's just
you want to take the BMW, take the BMW.
It's like, when do I, what?
You know why?
Why?
Because after you get older, he don't have any control anymore. So he can't control you anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's
just
I think it's primal too. I think when we're younger, when we're at a specific age, back in cave, what our bodies were designed for is we would go out and kill things and bring them back to the village. And when you stop being the warrior and you start becoming the tribal elder, you don't need to kill things anymore.
Right.
The young guys go out and kill the stuff. So, so it's almost like a wisdom tooth where your testosterone drops and goes back down. And then it's almost like men are this flower that blooms much later and women bloom much earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't like all the machismo that's in America. It concerns me. Like I remember going to school in Sweden and seeing a film in Sweden. It was a Stallone movie that was rated X.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this, a porno? But normal people were walking in. I went in, it was a normal Stallone movie. 2 weeks later, I see a Swedish film and it's my friend and his niece, remember Pele? And she was like 12. And it's a Swedish movie and a guy pulled down his pants and his penis was out. And I'm like, oh my God. And I look and the little girl next to me is just eating Swedish gummy fish, like no big deal.
Yeah.
And my friend goes, oh dude, I forgot you're American. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you guys rate your movies by sex. We rate our movies by violence.
Whoa.
I'd rather have my children watch a man and woman make love than watch a man stab another man.
Oh,
and I was like, and I was looking in the mirror going, I feel like I'm in a cult.
Yeah.
He's right. It broke my brain. And I went, there's this aggression that's in us as men, you know, where we just like the solution is always violence. And I think it distorts the way we're supposed to behave, the way Photoshop distorts the way women are supposed to look. It's not the way we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to. And I think Middle Eastern men have that even more so in like the cultures that we come from.
Yeah. That's something I noticed was went at my elementary school, another Iranian girl moved to town. She looked exactly like me. Immediately, everyone thought we were related.
No way.
It was the thing, like even teachers would stop me and be like, do you have a twin? And I'd be like, how in the world would I have had a twin who just showed up out of nowhere? She's just another Iranian girl who has brown curly hair and like looks like me because we're little Iranian girls. So that was a thing, like that was very fascinating to me because she'd be like, yeah, my dad's really hot-headed. And I'd be like, mine too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But it was like more so than like normal dads. And it was just, that was big for me. That was a big time. It was like 5th grade where I was like, dude, you get it. They're just angry.
It's huge to be seen. Now, when you went off and started having, there was a very specific reason why you went to school at UC Davis.
Yeah. So when I was in like 13, 14, we were living in the Bay and my brother was getting just so like, he was just in the wrong crowd all the time. And my parents, just being Middle Eastern, just inherently racist. Like they were like, no, we don't want our son to be like these African Americans. When you're like, really? Like you live in Berkeley, who cares? Like, but they like had a panic. And my dad's like, this is what we're doing. We're moving to Davis and we're going to plan the kids' lives where they end up at UC Davis. And I was like, your son is not going to college. Like, he's on a trajectory where he's just insane. And he ended up going to jail and then prison, and he's fine now. But like, I think he had it the worst with my father because he just didn't. He was 20 times worse than me when it came to like rebelling. Like, he just didn't care. And him and my dad would just get into physical fights where I would just be terrified. My mom couldn't do anything. Like, it was just bad. Like, they were, again, there was the same person. Like, we're so much of my dad that like, it was just, he couldn't deal with the fact that he had to basically tell someone who was him not to do something when he would have never listened to begin with. Like, he's just as angry, and it's like, now you have an angry son who can't express himself in any way. And so that always, it was just a very tumultuous like upbringing with them too. And then eventually, like, you know, he went to jail, and then he went to prison, and then he came out, and they have and now he lives at home again. And all he does is just like weightlift in front of the TV. He's so buff now. It's terrifying. Yeah. But he's a very calm, nice guy. Like, if you get to know him, like, my brother is so funny, so cool. You can't treat him like how my dad treated him, which was just like to be like, don't cry. You're a man. Don't freak out. And it's like, I've seen my brother and my dad both, like, kind of what you're saying, just like crying and fighting and just not knowing why they were doing it. Like, it's just like the anger and not knowing how to deal with it just would come out in like physical violence. Yeah. And that was always scared because my dad, if he would only slap me. That's the only as physical he got. But when he would get up and walk towards you when he was mad, that like you were just like, he's gonna kill me tonight. Yeah. Like, that is it. Like, I would just sort of be like, oh shit, and just like fucking run. Like,
I know that feeling.
Literally run. And that was. He was terrifying. He was truly terrifying. And now seeing him, I'm like, you motherfucker, you are not that scary. Like, he's changed a lot. But my brother now, like, I really wish my brother had a different, like, the one person I truly wish had a different upbringing who didn't have to be raised by my father is my brother. Like, he didn't deserve it. Like, now he's like, he's gone through so much. He lives at home. He studied law. So he got his law degree. He doesn't practice because he's just kind of, I think, very emotionally exhausted. Yeah. Like, he's at a very slow point in his life where he's just kind of, it's like he's just trying to figure out who he is again. Yeah. Without this like overbearing father, without having this like background of being in jail and hanging out with these like very intense dudes who, would get him in trouble and stuff. And he's just trying to really pull his life back together. And he's like in his 30s, and he just is like stalled because my father didn't know how to raise him. Sure. And that is like the hardest thing for me to see, like my brother who just has so much potential. He's so funny. He's an amazing storyteller. He's working on his like memoirs to try and like kind of like Oz style. Do you remember the show Oz? Of course. Like, it's that level of intensity because the things he saw, like, he'd always be like, yeah, like, I had a one-armed roommate in prison who would make moonshine in the toilet. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, the things he's seen, like he converted to Islam in prison. Wow. And now him and my mom have a connection, like a strong, like they do Quran study together. They fast together. Like, there's like this beautiful thing that actually came out as he converted to Islam, and now him and my mom are closer than ever. That's because great. They have this thing together that they can like, experience and talk about. And it's a foothold. It's a foothold into this new chapter, where he's starting to do, I feel like I'm a very similar archetype to what your brother was. Yeah. And my reaction to my dad's disciplinary behavior is similar to your brother's, where I put on a lot of muscle. Yeah. And it was more like, putting barbed wire on a fence more than like going after people. Yeah. It was my way to keep myself, I had a friend ask me one time, he goes, did you get really buff and scary looking because of bullies? And I go, yeah. He goes, who was your worst bully? And I go, my dad. Yeah. My dad said things that were I was like, I'm never going to have anyone talk to me like that. Yeah. I'm never going to have anyone treat me like that. And I was talking about my own dad. Yeah. And, in the gym, that's who I would think about when I was like angry and trying to get a weight that was too heavy for me to lift off. Yeah. It was that anger that was pushing out at me. Yeah, that's how I imagine why my brother kind of got pulled into like the tougher crowds, because he wanted to be the tough guy. He wanted to be the guy that you were afraid of. Yeah. Because that's the safest guy. Yeah. Yeah. That's what people forget about these guys that look really buff and scary and have tattoos. Sometimes those are guys that are the most scared. Yeah.
And when you look really buff, it makes you feel the most safe.
Right.
It's a very safe thing to feel that other people are afraid of you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was telling you earlier. My brother will sit in front of the TV and just works out in front of my dad, just weights lifts, and my dad just always sits there like, ugh.
It's like Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
It really is.
He wants him to see. He's like, I am not the one anymore.
Yeah.
And my dad doesn't, of course, because he's so calmed down, he doesn't say anything to my brother. Like he lets him. He knows that. I think my dad sees it. He sees what he's done, and he just he leaves him alone. He lets him live his life.
That's
good.
Hopefully the beginning of a new trajectory. I can see these things being really great for him. I can see you being an inspiration for him to share his story. And now he's got, you can turn shit into fuel.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they do.
I mean, the other thing is, but we're just not very close because my parents didn't raise us to be close. And that was just kind of like.
You never know. Yeah. You never know what could happen though. Like I started comedy at 40 and I didn't even realize the reason why I wasn't doing it is because I just kept chasing my dad's approval. Yeah. Constantly chasing his approval. And then when he passed away, Allah yarhamu, see, I did the right way. Yes. When he passed away, it was the first time where I went, oh my God, I've never really thought what makes me happy. Yeah. And now that this GPS system was yanked out of my car, I had to become my own compass. Yeah. And it was pursuing comedy and going, this is the one thing that makes me really happy and gives me purpose. That was, when the instructor in the class was like, you need to go to therapy. Yeah. And because the stories I was sharing and the behavior I had, even in the class, like trying to be vulnerable, he saw like it would rock me to share. And if it wasn't for him getting into therapy, I'm a different person. So you never, the story, there's more chapters. You. Yeah.
And actually very big. So when I went to college, I studied film and technocultural studies, which was like a major at UC Davis that was just so experimental. It's just like technocultural studies. It was the study of technology, art, culture, and machines.
How cool.
It was wild. We had some really crazy classes. But so after I graduated, the year after I graduated, I went to, and I would go to Iran every 2 or 3 years with my family. And unless I was in school and my parents would just go themselves. But there was this year I went and my uncle, he was getting older, is my dad's older brother. And he's my dad's only brother and he's like the patriarch of our family.
Oh, wow.
And he, this is actually right out, I told the story in Arab Spring Break after I broke my toe in Iran and, it got fixed. This little old man fixed it. And
oh, yeah. You told me the story in your podcast.
Yeah. And So my dad was being such a jerk about it because I had to go see my crazy angry aunt, the sheriff, as they call her. I was just like so emotional and like I was a mess and I'd been in Iran for like a month and it was summer and I was covered up the whole time and it's just after a while when you're not used to it, like constantly wearing like thick clothing in the heat, and I'm just like an emotional girl from America, like I was just starting to lose my mind. Yeah. And I was in the bathroom and one of my little cousins comes and knocks on the door and goes, "Uncle wants to see you." And I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. And he had this huge, beautiful house because he was like literally the town's like contractor. He built all the roads. Like he was known. At his funeral, he died 2 years ago. There's 1,000 people there. Wow. And I was like, how do you know my uncle? They were like, how do you know your uncle? Like, he's huge in this town. And I was like, I don't know. So he's sitting in the deep, dark corner of his living room and he's chain smoked all day inside the house with his little sweater vest on. He would smoke it all the way down where the ash would just fall on his sweater vest. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So Iranian, just like this Persian torque.
I've met that Persian guy. Yeah.
That was my uncle. And he was this little tiny man, which is weird because my dad's very big and his older brother was like 5 foot. It was weird. Oh, wow. Just a very small little man. And he's sitting in the dark corner of his living room. And it was this huge living room because they make these giant living rooms for parties to have, to host and have dancing, So I walk all the way to the corner and I sit down and he's smoking a cigarette and he goes, "Look, I get it." And I'm like, "Get what? Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "I understand. Your dad, he's a very hard man. And it's because that's how he was raised. Our parents died when we were young. He thought he was the youngest and he thought he had to be the strongest for all of us. And I get it. I understand how you feel. I see it. I see how he treats you. Wow. And I know. And you're okay. It's okay. Wow. If you ever need anything, you come to me." And I was like, I literally was like, oh my fucking God, no one has ever said this to me.
You knew exactly what to say.
He knew. He was like, I see it. I know who he is. That's my little brother. I raised him. He has always been this way. He's just hard.
Yeah.
And I get it. And I was like,
did you just feel your body just?
Yes. I was like, finally? Because your whole life, everyone's like, respect your father. He's your father. He loves you. He just wants the best for you. But to have his own brother, who's the patriarch of this family, who does not say anything, because his own son died when his son died at 17.
Oh, wow.
I have his name tattooed on my hand, in like a tragic freak accident. Like a firecracker hit a gas thing and blew up the house, like destroyed our family. Like it was probably one of the things that really shook my father's side of the family. And so that he has not really spoken. Like he doesn't talk a lot. He sits quietly. He smokes he chain smokes his cigarettes. He doesn't say much. So like when he does say something, it's like very like
so profound.
Yeah, like you're just like, wow, uncle's talking to me. Like you're just like, wow. And that was it. And then he was like,
do you love the shit out of that uncle?
Yeah, he passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's actually really interesting. He passed away very suddenly, and I had to be the one to tell my father because they couldn't reach my father. And my cousin sent me a DM on Instagram and said, "Uncle passed away. You need to tell your father." And I was at a party. I was at a house party in Oakland, actually, and I had to be like, "Oh, okay, well, rip that Band-Aid off." Just went outside. I was a little drunk. I was just like, "Dad, so sorry." And he was in Napa that weekend drinking with his buddies, and I was like, I had to tell him, and I told him. And he was like, what? I talked to him this morning. He was fine. And he had just died of septic shock. He was alive 1 minute, dead the next. Like just that quickly. Like went to the bathroom, told his wife, my aunt, I wasn't feeling well. She's like, let me get you a glass of water. Comes back, he's dead. He's gone.
Wow.
So that was like, that like shook the family. Like immediately I went to, like I literally was like, sorry work, I'm out of here. Like I flew to Iran and it was just... That was, I knew I had to go because I was like, that is the one person who truly saw me in my situation. And it was just like.
It takes the weight out of your shoulder.
Yeah,
it must have been.
Yeah.
I really, truly, like I felt like, thank you. Like, thank you for just knowing that you should, that someone should say something to me.
What a moment. Like, what a that's, it's funny. A lot of times people go, what is art? That's art.
Yeah, it's truly something I will never forget.
Him being able to feel you and to give you the perfect words.
Yeah. And someone who's gone through so much himself, like it was, I don't know. He had to raise this family after because their parents died young and he just built himself up to the man he was. Like sitting in his beautiful home with his gold furniture that I broke my toe on. Like he just, I don't know.
It's funny when you get a glimpse into the origin stories of fathers' personalities. It starts to humanize them in a way where you just go, it's I think it's better for us. Yeah. You know, it starts to feel like they're, because I think when you don't know the origin stories of how they became the way they became, they don't feel human. You know, it's like something about humanizing these people that unintentionally, most likely, kind of terrorized us a little bit. Like it's so helpful to, and so speaking, this is a good transition because I cannot express how proud of you guys I am. I feel like I keep hearing about, you know, the future is female, and I hate that it's a tagline because I think it is. And I think, like, you know, when you create art, which it's funny because to me, like, one of the greatest things that Iran has ever done as a culture is like the poetry, the art, art's very important in your culture, and you guys have always been great at creating it. And now I feel like not only is the future female, but the people who are carving the walls in this generation's version of a pyramid are you guys. Yeah, wow. Like you and Shireen and the stuff. So
we don't think of it that way.
You should.
The struggle is so real.
I know it's real, but like the stuff you're doing is really important. Yeah. And it's really important for people that are going through the experiences that you went through, and for them to see that there's a glorious way out. So so this transitions me to now. Like I really look at you guys and I go, oh my God, these guys are so important. Yeah. And so is this the happiest time for you, going through all the experiences that you've been through now, being like a creator of art and a creator of comedy and being able to speak so freely? And it's almost like watching a caterpillar become a butterfly. Yeah, I think it's such a cheap metaphor.
Just knowing that I was never able to hear someone say, oh no, I went through that same thing. Yeah. That's like the best. When someone goes like, you know what you said, but like there was early on in an episode, I'd got in a really bad fight with my dad. Like he like threw away all my childhood things.
Wow.
And this is recent. So he has his weird moments where he goes back to his thing. Later, the big thing is he apologized and he said, I was on antibiotics. I did not realize what I was doing. And I've never felt worse for doing that to you.
Wow.
And I came back to LA and I did this episode where I was like, you can't let these people define you. And it was just it was the most open I've been about my like aggressive relationship with my father, how it like would go back and forth. And I don't know, the responses I got of like, there was this like Iranian woman of who was queer who reached out to me and was just like, I've never been able to have a relationship with my father, and like listening to you like talk about not letting it define you was like, I was like, yeah, thank you, because that's all I wanted to hear was someone else be like, I just wanted to hear someone else say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's like the only, like, that's why we do the show.
That's so huge.
Because just, you feel so alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not alone anymore.
I know. No,
you make very good job to share everything for young people coming to new immigrant and all that.
Yeah.
It's very, very important because the kids, they get lost. They don't know.
You do get lost.
You're doing good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
And
proud of you, Shireen.
Even before this whole future is female thing, anytime I've dated anybody, she immediately becomes friends with the girl, and then they start trash talking men.
No, never.
These guys, am I right?
Never. He knows. I love him so much.
Most of the time, you're right. I'll give you credit. Sometimes I feel a little left out that I'm not a lady. You guys are in the kitchen talking about how dumb men are. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm a man, right?
But
I'm
included.
also a man.
You're not included.
All
He's
other
so
men,
smart.
not Tamer.
You're too smart. No.
Yeah. Well,
So proud of you, Anna and Shireen. And a pleasure for me to meet you guys.
Oh, it's a pleasure for us to know you're
invited
here.
for kushari.
Oh, thank
kushari.
you.
It's best food
I've never
in
had
Egypt.
it, but
Oh, you will love it.
I'm
it's
sure
so
I'll
good.
recognize some aspects of
you
it.
will love
That's
it.
the best part. That's what we're learning is just how close like Arabic and Iranian culture are.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what's so funny that happened to me today?
Huh.
So I'm on a show tonight at the Standard Hotel in Hollywood, and I don't know the producer, so she Googled me.
Yeah.
And the weekend before, I just did a show with Maz Jabrani. I opened for Maz, and so this girl put up an Instagram story, and it goes, "Come see Tamer and Kattan," and it was Maz Jabrani.
Oh my God.
A picture of Maz. And I emailed, I go, I'm not Maz Jabrani. And she's like, I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, it's okay. It's totally okay. It's two bald brown guys. I'm like, but I'm the one with glasses.
How is Maz?
He's such a sweetheart. He's such a good man.
Yeah.
Like he's, I'll tell you, I've been in comedy 8 years now. And about my second year in, I asked him for advice. And he is a very busy guy. And he met me for coffee. He spent an hour with me talking to this. He didn't know if I was going to stick with comedy, but Iranian people like have been so important to me. Some of my best friends have been Iranian. I feel like Iranians are better at helping each other than Arabs are. Egyptians are in particular. Yeah. And I think like Maz has really gone out of his way to be like really kind to me and really nice to me. So I can't speak more kindly and more fondly of the guy. He's really great and such an inspiration. Yeah. It was seeing him and other Middle Eastern comics on the Axis of Evil comedy tour that made me look at it and go, there are possibilities for me. And I think that's what you guys are doing now. You're that version for this next generation of creative people and talented people that are going to start carving on the walls of America's pyramids. And so it'll be easier for them. And I don't know what our purpose is on earth, but fuck if it isn't partly that. Yeah. You know, making it a little bit better for people that are like us and making the world a little bit kinder and a little bit gentler. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, for being an inspiration. Follow these girls' podcasts, these women's. How do you say it grammatically? These women's podcasts? What kind of an American am I? Follow these ladies. Follow the Ethnically Ambiguous. Follow the Ethnically Ambiguous podcast. Thank you so much for being on. Is there any other thing you want to shout out, Anna?
I just produce a bunch of podcasts, so if you want to listen to them, Daily Zeitgeist, Couples
Daily Zeitgeist
Therapy.
is amazing. Oh, you do couples therapy as well?
Couples therapy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Nerdificent. What else do I do? Will You Accept This Rose? That's what I do. My day job is podcast.
Is that a bachelor themed podcast.
Yes, it
oh my
is.
God, I'm addicted to The Bachelor.
Are you serious?
It's so weird. It's only me and Howard Stern. We're the only guys that openly discuss
Oh my God,
it.
we have so much to talk about after this.
One of my friends is an EP on that show, Bill Dixon.
Oh my God.
So his Instagram's amazing.
Yeah.
He's literally posting pictures from the episodes before they come out.
I think I saw, because he's a comedian, right?
He's a comedian, yeah,
I
exactly.
saw him on an episode when, what's her name, on Winter Games went to go throw up. He like shows up out of nowhere to be like, are you okay? And I'm like, isn't that that one comedian? So anyway, I just stalk
I feel
these
like
people.
the rose was taken from our culture, the give her a rose. That's very Middle Eastern America.
ABC, they take what they can.
Okay, thanks so much for listening to this episode of They Tried to Bury Us. Thanks for all the positive reviews. Thanks for telling everyone you know. Kity, you want to say goodbye to the folks?
Okay, thank you very much, Anna and
Thank
Shireen.
you.
It's nice to meet you. You're great, strong women, and I love that. I support
you.
strong women.
She does.
Keep it up.
Thank
Keep it up. Never let anybody put you down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your parents love you, but they don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
I know
things to
same
show you,
thing
but-
with Tamer. I know his father, he love him, but he don't know how.
Yeah.
So, but he was a great man.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a great man.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Ya Satir Ya Rab.
Ya Satir Ya Rab. I can't say anything without her laughing at my accent. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time.